Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana. Senator, before we get into all of that mess, I want to talk about our last segment. We had some tech people on and also a congressman on who were concerned about hacking in the 2016 election and what we're doing about the 2020 election. I think the most important point was yes, it was Russians, and yes, the Russians may have had their preference in 2016. But we don't know what the next attack is going to be. Already, Iranian sites are being taken down. The Chinese, obviously, very aggressive in this area. What is the United States Senate doing? What's the House? What are you guys together all doing to try to protect us from Russian interference, Chinese interference, Iranian interference in the future?
In the last budget, Joe, the Senate and the House gave a substantial amount of money to our states to try to help them beef up their security from being hacked in terms of their elections. My understanding is that the states are spending that money, but they haven't spent all of it yet. I would be opposed to having the federal government take over all local elections for two reasons. I don't think that's the role of the federal government. And number two, I think the fact that we have every state and in some cases localities in charge of elections makes them harder to hack.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that. I know in the state of Florida, there's 67 counties. You got 67 supervisors of elections. And yes, they have different ways that they count ballots, but it is impossible for the Russians or somebody else to infiltrate not only all the Florida supervisor of elections offices, but in Louisiana and across the country. Isn't the fact that it is still decentralized one of the greatest safeguards against significant hacking?
Sure, in my judgment. But you make, or your previous commentator made a very salient point. You don't have to be a senior at Caltech to figure out this is going to continue. I mean, the Russians have been doing it for 40 years. Things seem to go a little better in the 2018 elections, but it's not just the Russians. I fully expect the Chinese to become involved if they haven't already, and others. It's just the world we live in.
Yeah, you know, Senator, one of the things that they spoke about that I really did like, and I don't know if you'd be comfortable with the federal government at least putting this bare bone requirement on all the states in exchange for some money. But I love the idea of a paper trail for every vote cast. Is that something that you think might be an additional safeguard, an additional requirement? Let the states do it the way the states want to do it, but just say, hey, listen, just make sure you have a paper trail for every vote cast.
I do. I agree with that. And I think most states, I know my state, Louisiana, is moving toward that end.
That's good. Hey, let's go ahead and turn to the Mueller report. You've said, well, everybody in Congress has said, and the president said last week, that the Mueller report should be released in full. That way, you knock down all the conspiracy theories, you knock down all the suggestions that the Attorney General's not playing it straight. How should that look? Talk about the timeline that you think would work the best for that.
I think Bill Barr is a straight shooter. I think he wants to and will release this report at some time. Now, my understanding is that he is going through and scrubbing the report to remove grand jury materials, the disclosure of which would be a violation of federal law. To some extent, Joe, it's an academic issue because the report's going to leak anyway. The only question is whether it's going to leak in part or in toto. But I trust the American people to figure this out. Point two, I understand now why it took Mr. Mueller 2 years. It was a pretty impressive effort. 500 search warrants, 2,800 subpoenas, 40 FBI agents, 500 witnesses. I think it was pretty thorough. Point three, we'll see once the full report comes out. But again, I think Bill Barr is a straight shooter. Mr. Mueller found no evidence of collusion. It's clear that the obstruction of justice issue was a closer call for him. He referred that to the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General. But what's important to me is he didn't recommend an indictment. I'd like to see us move on. I would say to the president very gently When you get what you want, leave it alone. It's okay. It's okay to have an unexpressed thought.
Boy, wow. If my mom and daddy had only taught me that, David Ignatius, they had only taught me that.
God.
Senator, and I said yesterday, and I don't mean any disrespect, but you know, don't be a meathead about this. And I would say this to my Democratic colleagues as well, and to my Republican colleagues. Imagine, Joe and Mika, if we focused all of the effort and emotion and passion that we focused on this subject to reducing the cost of health insurance in America.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine what we could do. But I'm worried it's going to continue on.
Senator, this is David Ignatius. Just want to stick with this same question of the Mueller report and what to do. Some of your Republican colleagues, including President Trump, have talked about investigating the investigators and looking back. And is that a good idea? Would you be in favor of that, or is it time to stop that?
Here's what I think, David. I think the FBI is the premier law enforcement agency in all of human history. I think there were, I hope there still aren't, but I think there were some people, a small minority of people at the FBI who acted on their political beliefs, both against Trump and against Clinton. I hope they're gone, but if not, they need to be gone. All I want from them is a way. Get rid of them. I would like to see the president declassify all of the documents pertaining to the FBI's involvement in the 2016 election, both with respect to then candidate Trump and Secretary Clinton, and let the American people make up their mind. And once we see the documentation and who did what to whom, then we can talk about more hearings. But to me, that is the short way home. If you want to, you can continue these investigations, but I think the American people see this for what it is. It's just one party trying to score points against another party. Meanwhile, their moms and dads lying down on their beds at night, they can't sleep because they're worried about the cost of health care. They're worried about their kids' education. They're worried about whether there's a level playing field in getting their kids into college, and we're not dealing with any of that. And I think we're letting the American people down, but I'm probably in a minority on that.
All right, Senator John Kennedy, always great to have your opinion and to have you on the show. Thank you very much
Mika,
for joining us this morning.
Are you getting any work out of Joe?
Not at all.
Just a little bit. He's working hard. You should have heard him this morning.
I know you have to carry him, but we all have our burdens.
You know, it could be worse.
Her shoulders are weary. Her shoulders are weary. She carries me every day.
Good Lord. All right. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Senator.
it.